Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to a roundup of a few news stories, as well as a look at the results from today's Friday practice sessions. We've had cars on track finally. But first of all, Sebastian Vettel has admitted that he was left surprised by Ferrari's decision not to renew his contract for 2021, and has even stated that he was never offered a new deal at all. Back in February, at the launch of the SF1000, Mattia Binotto was adamant that Vettel was the team's preferred option for next season, but in April, it was announced that the German would be leaving the team at the end of this season. And when asked on Thursday about how everything unfolded, Vettel stated, "It was obviously a surprise to me when I got the call by Mattia when he told me that there was no further intention from the team to continue. We never got into any discussions. There was never an offer on the table and therefore there was no sticking point." So contrary to what many reports were claiming at the time, there weren't even any discussions, let alone an offer being on the table for Vettel to reject. And I think a lot of people were surprised to hear Seb confirm that this weekend. The German did also open up about his future, insisting that he wants to achieve even more in Formula 1, but also he is in absolutely no rush to make any decision. At the moment, I'm not really having any talks. Looking forward, obviously I want to make sure I make the right decision for myself and for my future. I think I have a very competitive nature, I've achieved a lot in the sport, and I'm motivated and willing to achieve more. To do so, I think I need the right package and the right people around me, so that's what I'm looking out for at the moment. If the right opportunity should arise, then I think it's quite clear. If that's not the case, then I probably have to look out for something else. Team boss Mattia Binotto has insisted that Sebastian Vettel was always the first option, but because of the way the situation changed around the world and in Formula 1 as a result of COVID-19, things like a lower budget cap and the postponed regulations, things changed within the team and they had to make a decision. One thing Vettel did appear to rule out though is a sabbatical, adding that if he leaves, he is prepared to close the door for good and do something else, but his preference is to remain in Formula 1. But what seats are open for Seb? Well, Mercedes technically have 2 seats available. Racing Point haven't officially confirmed anything, but it does look like they're going to stick with Stroll. Again, no, nothing official. And then you've got the likes of Red Bull, maybe Alfa Romeo, and even Haas and Williams. But if we take what Seb has said about wanting to achieve more in Formula 1 and be competitive, you'd have to say it's probably between Mercedes and Red Bull. But what do you guys think? Where will Seb be in 2021? You can, as ever, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Moving on now, and Max Verstappen is confident that Red Bull is in a good position ahead of this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix, and he is positive that the team can challenge for a 3rd consecutive win at the circuit. The Dutchman, who is looking forward to getting back out on track, also made it clear that he would not be changing his approach this season, despite the fact the calendar is set to be much shorter than the one that everybody is used to. "I think we are in a good position and we have kept pushing to bring all of the parts here, and we have an upgraded engine already. All those things were scheduled, but after the 4 months layoff to bring it here is good, and I am looking forward to getting started so we can see where we are. For me, it doesn't make a difference because if it's 22 races or 8 or 15, you never want the DNF, so you always want the best result possible. If you make a mistake, it's more costly, but that is how it is, so the approach is pretty similar. You always want a good result, you don't want to retire." Now, although winter testing time shouldn't be taken too seriously, Red Bull did look the most likely team to challenge Mercedes this season. And with a raft of changes arriving for the 2020 car and a new power unit upgrade, all eyes will be on them in Austria. Next up, Chase Carey has given an update on the 2020 calendar and when we can expect to see more tracks added. Last weekend, it was reported that a provisional calendar would be released before the race in Austria this weekend, but at time of recording, no announcement has been made, and it doesn't look like we'll be hearing anything in the immediate future. In an interview on the F1 website, Carey stated, "I think in the next few weeks we will look to land certainly at least another chunk of the calendar. Ideally, we'd like to land the whole second half of the calendar. There are a number of races we already know will be on the calendar. I don't want to get into piecemeal addressing it. I'd like to address it holistically. But to lock the dates in, we really need to figure out what other races will be on it." He went on to add that F1 bosses are still confident of reaching the target of 15 to 18 races, and also explains some of the difficulties they are having with confirming events, especially in the Americas, but a decision, one way or another, will have to be made soon. When you look at the US, Mexico, Brazil, clearly right now they seem to be having a higher incidence of infections than other places. Really, we need to know, can we race in a location? Will there be restrictions on our ability to get in and out of a location in a functioning way? Ultimately, we need to plan ahead, So there's a point in time when we have to just put a stake in the ground and make decisions on what we know. I think that is soon. So it is expected that a race at Mugello, which would take place the weekend after the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, will be part of the second half of the calendar, and the noise around a race at the Algarve circuit in Portugal seems to be building too. And if they were to go ahead and with 2 races expected in China, 2 in Bahrain and 1 in Abu Dhabi, that would take the total number of races to 15. So basically, if F1 can get some racing in the Americas too, that upper target of 18 appears possible, and it would also see the season run across 3 different continents as well, but hopefully we'll hear more soon. Esteban Ocon has said that he would welcome Fernando Alonso at Renault next season as speculation builds around who could fill the seat vacated by Daniel Ricciardo at the end of 2020. Just in case you didn't already know, Ricciardo is moving to McLaren next season to replace Carlos Sainz, who's on his way to Ferrari, and a number of drivers have and are still being linked with a move to partner Ocon, including the likes of Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso, as well as some of the manufacturer's junior drivers. And ahead of this weekend, Ocon was asked about the possibility of teaming up with Alonso, to which he replied, "My personal choice has no relation to what the team are going to do, but I have a great relationship with Fernando. The helmet I have and the only swap I did in between drivers was with him. He was the one that fought Michael Schumacher back in the day. That gave me the love for the sport. I don't know if he's going to join me or not, but definitely, if he could come back, I would be very happy." Renault have previously confirmed that Alonso is an option for them in 2021, and some reports even claimed earlier this week, get ready for this one, that Fernando had all but agreed a deal to replace Ricciardo immediately, not next season, but in the coming weeks. Yeah, whatever. However, that has been dismissed as complete nonsense by the team and Alonso himself, who is looking forward to going racing at the Indy 500 later this year. And finally, we had cars on track today, as I said at the top of the video, as the 2020 Formula 1 season finally got underway with FP1 and FP2. So let's have a look at the results from both of those sessions, starting obviously with FP1. Lewis Hamilton topped the session on a 104.816, 42 laps on the board for him and 3/10 clear of teammate Valtteri Bottas, as Mercedes very much hit the ground running in Austria, and yes, before you ask, they were using DAS. So keep an eye out for that protest from Red Bull. Max Verstappen was 3rd place, 105.4, 6/10 off the pace. He did have a spin, by the way, at turn 1, but nothing major and was able to continue. Carlos Sainz was 4th for McLaren, a 105.4, 6/10 off the pace, 41 laps on the board. Sergio Perez was 5th. There was a little bit of concern around Perez after smoke was seen coming from the back of his car, but the team did investigate and they found nothing of concern. Lando Norris there in 6th place ahead of Alexander Albon. Daniel Ricciardo there, 105.8 in 8th place, just ahead of Kevin Magnussen on a 105.9. But Charles Leclerc was the fastest of the Ferraris down in 10th place, 1.1 seconds off the pace of the Mercedes. But some reports and pundits and all that jazz all seem to believe that Ferrari were working on long run pace, so take that with a pinch of salt for now. Lance Stroll was 11th in the 2nd pink Mercedes, Sebastian Vettel 12th there in the 2nd Ferrari, followed by Esteban Ocon in 13th. There was a bit of a hairy moment for Ocon though after some of his barge board flew off the car, which triggered a brief virtual safety car, but it was all good in the end. Antonio Giovinazzi ended the session in 14th place of 106.3, just ahead of teammate Kimi Räikkönen. Pierre Gasly 16th and George Russell 17th. Bit of a hairy moment as well between them two, after Gasly lost it in the final corner just in front of George Russell. That could have got very messy indeed, but both drivers managed to keep going. Nicholas Latifi, he was in 18th place. Daniel Kvyat down in 19th and just 19 laps on the board. And poor Romain Grosjean, that guy just never gets any luck, even with 7 months without racing. He ended the session plumb last, no representative time, as you can see there, 146.361, just 6 laps overall on the board, and that's because once again his Haas was suffering with brake problems. Now before I throw another results table at you, there are a couple of other news stories that cropped up during the break between sessions that are definitely well worth a mention. So super quickly, Christian Horner has said that the team will seek clarification from the FIA over the legality of the DAS system on the Mercedes. No real great surprise there, but Toto Wolff has actually urged Red Bull to be, quote, sensitive about the timing of the protest and is fearful that it will overshadow F1 season opening weekend. I'll read this quote from Toto quickly. It is the first race, and I think on one side it is fair enough to seek clarification, but on the other side we are aware that we don't want to end up with a big debate on Sunday. But Christian Horner was clear that the aim was to seek clarification early in the weekend rather than waiting for after qualifying or the race, and admitted that their view of what DAS does differs from Mercedes. If you add to that the confirmation from some team principals that they are still seeking answers about the Ferrari engine settlement that was of course agreed earlier this year, things could be set to get very political and very messy over the course of this weekend. F1 is well and truly back. Anyway, enough of all of that, as I'm sure you can understand at some point I have to stop reading the news and actually get around to putting the video out. So if there is any more big news, I will pop a link in the comments and the description to an article, but let's have a look at the result from FP2. It was, once again, a dominant showing from Mercedes. In practice, of course, it is only Friday, but Hamilton topped the timesheets ahead of teammate Valtteri Bottas, a smaller gap this time, 0.2 of a second. And then it's Sergio Perez. Look at him there in third place. I know it's only Friday practice, and I've got to keep saying that, but I'm very excited to see just how good that Racing Point is. And at the moment, they look like they've got some very good speed in that car. Sebastian Vettel was fourth, better afternoon for Ferrari. He had an off up at turn 3, but nothing major to worry about. Daniel Ricciardo was fifth, Lando Norris in sixth place, Lance Stroll down in seventh, but he did make a mistake on his flying lap, so that's probably cost him quite a bit of time there. Max Verstappen in eighth place. He had an off at turn 5 straight on into the gravel but recovered. Charles Leclerc there, ninth place, 9/10 off the pace, nearly a full second off the Mercedes. And then Carlos Sainz is just behind, rounding out the top 10. Of course, teammates next year, those two. Esteban Ocon was in 11th place with Daniel Kvyat in 12th. He was another one who had a bit of a spin, as was Alexander Albon, almost mimicking what Max Verstappen did in FP1. But he's down there in 13th place. Antonio Giovinazzi 14th, once again ahead of teammate Kimi Räikkönen, but then it's Magnussen and Grosjean. So a better afternoon for Rogro, but he was still complaining of brake issues, specifically what he described as a strong knocking. Pierre Gasly, he finished up 17th this afternoon. And then it's George Russell, Kimi Räikkönen, a similar incident to what Max Verstappen did, straight on at turn 5 but recovered. And Nicholas Latifi had a couple of adventures too, but he finished up the session in last place. 2.8 seconds covers the entire field, with 1.3 seconds separating Perez in third and Kimi Räikkönen down in 19th. It is a cliche, but that midfield, which actually based on practice is everybody but Mercedes, I'm pretty sure that'll close up as the weekend goes on, but at the moment 1.3 seconds is incredibly tight. That is it for this roundup though. I will be back over the course of the weekend with more content, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye bye.